I want to talk about the march on Saturday. The march supporting Hamas, the march supporting Hezbollah, the march supporting Iran. Because let's be honest, that's what it was. Why? I want to ask a question, and this is a genuine question to all those white, middle-class, educated idiots. Why are you wandering through the capital city of your country that probably your grandparents, your great-grandparents fought in two world wars against tyranny to protect? Why are you walking through our capital city carrying the flag that to many Jewish people in this country represents terrorism? Carrying that flag in London on Saturday would have been like carrying the Nazi flag through London during the Second World War. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I really don't. Chanting from the river to the sea is calling for the genocide of the Jewish people, calling for the genocide of everybody who calls themselves an Israeli. And incidentally, there's Christian Israelis, there's Muslim Israelis, and the Jewish Israelis. Israel isn't an apartheid state. And everybody knows that, but it's a great little phrase to have. And to all those little student types with the blue hair and the piercings everywhere, and well, you don't know whether it's Arthur or Martha, you know those types. You know, you're calling for an intifada. Do you really know what an intifada is? An intifada is an uprising that uses violence and terrorism to get its way. Well, it never works because they never win. That's the other thing. The other thing about your little cause, it's a failing and failed cause. It's not going too well for Hamas at the minute. Their only leader left alive has surrounded himself by children and women, hostages, that they took at gunpoint. Some of them may be dead, but nobody really knows because he's deep down in a tunnel, hiding with women and children around him, so that if any Israeli Special Forces unit goes there, they'll all be killed. That's what Hamas are doing. They've been absolutely battered in the Gaza Strip. There's not a lot of them left. All the leadership are in disarray. So you're backing a losing cause. But you're not just backing a losing cause, you're backing a losing cause that has destroyed the Gaza Strip since it was handed over to them. You know, again, because nobody even knows about recent history, let alone ancient history. When the Gaza Strip was handed over to the Palestinians, and at the time, I remember it happening, everybody with a brain said Ariel Sharon had lost his mind to do it. Ariel Sharon was the Prime Minister, again a war hero, an ex-tank commander. But Ariel Sharon handed the Gaza Strip over to the Palestinians. Within a couple of years, it was completely destroyed. When he handed it over, it was vineyards, it was farms, it was agriculture, industry. And now it's been turned into a military death camp where they use their own people as human shields, not just Israeli hostages. They're holding their own people hostage. That's what Hamas do. That's what these vile, disgusting terrorists do, murderers, jihadists. You're supporting that. Or Hezbollah. Now, I could be wrong in this. If it wasn't Hezbollah, it was a group very like Hezbollah, killed, I think it was 230 US Marines in 1983 in a massive truck bomb explosion, one of the biggest explosions that had taken place and biggest non-nuclear explosions that had taken place since the Second World War. Hezbollah murdered scores of Jewish people in Argentina, murdered British citizens, kidnapped British citizens. A vile terrorist organisation. You really support Hezbollah? You see, the Gaza Strip, you talk about freeing Palestine. What about freeing Palestine from Hamas? What about freeing Palestine from Islamic Jihad? What about freeing Palestine from all those jihadist groups? What about freeing Palestine from that stinking, disgusting ideology that wants to kill everybody that doesn't agree with what they think? Would that not be a better idea? Would that not be if you really cared about the Palestinian people, you would be supporting Israel in rooting out Hamas. Because Hamas have tortured every single decent person in those territories. They killed their rivals after they defeated them in an election. They murdered them all. They murder homosexuals. They've persecuted Christians to the point of death. There's not many Christians left in the Palestinian territories now. Same in Lebanon. Hezbollah is a gangster state within a state in Lebanon. And what Israel has done is a good thing for Lebanon. It's a good thing eventually it will be for Gaza. If they're allowed to rebuild it, if they're allowed to de-radicalize it. You see, after the Second World War, there was a denazification process in Germany. What about a de-Islamization process in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the so-called occupied territories? Would that not work? Would that not be better? The new chanting, ceasefire now, from the river to the sea. You would really want a jihadist state instead of Israel. What is wrong with you people? Are you mentally ill? Are you deranged? And you say, oh, well, they stole the land from the Arabs. No, they didn't. It's a long, long history. If you go back to 1400 BC, that's when the Jews invaded, or the Hebrews invaded Canaan, as it was called, and conquered it. Do you want to go and find the Canaanites? Maybe return them to the land? Or what, should we go with the Philistines? Not the Palestinians, the Philistines. Maybe go with them. Because obviously there was a bit of beef between the Israelis and the Philistines. Incidentally, the Israelis always won when God was on the side and standing with them. That's another story. But the reality is that morally, your ideas are totally bankrupt. Nobody likes seeing children killed. Nobody likes seeing women killed. Nobody likes seeing war. But what is Israel meant to do when the Palestinian Hamas use the Palestinian people as human shields? As Netanyahu says, they commit a double war crime. They fire a missile at innocent civilians in Israel. They go in and massacre innocent civilians in Israel. Then they run and hide behind their own people in hospitals, schools and mosques. What are the Israeli army and the IDF meant to do? And from everything I've read, what they have done in Gaza has been incredible. Yes, there have been a lot of people killed. A lot of those people, incidentally, were terrorists, without a shadow of a doubt. We can't rely on those figures that are coming out from Hamas, because Hamas lie. They're a terrorist organisation. By their very nature, they're dishonest and subversive. And Hezbollah that had enough munitions to probably wipe out northern Israel. Thousands upon thousands of rockets. What was Israel supposed to do? You see, most people looking at the conflict in Israel look on in horror and buy into the narrative that the Israelis are these terrible, murderous, colonial butchers. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East, the only real democracy. Is it perfect democracy? No. Is Netanyahu perfect? No. Is any leader perfect? No. But instead of looking at the overall picture, instead of looking at what's actually happening in the Middle East and looking at the terror state that Iran is and what that's been doing for the last, since 1979, what is it, 50 years now, 40 years? Over 40 years? Instead of doing that, people get on their high horses. They wrap a Palestinian flag around them and think that they're doing a great thing going out on the march. You're not. You're shaming your country. You're endangering your country. You're facilitating terrorists. You're legitimizing terrorists. It's time to stop. It's time to grow up. If you're in your 50s and you're strapping a Palestinian flag around your head, or waving a Palestinian flag, or carrying a placard saying "from the river to the sea," you really need to grow up. And if you're a little brat shouting for an intifada, do you really want a suicide bomber coming into your school or your university? Because that's what the intifada was about. Murdering young Israelis. That's what the Nova Festival was about, murdering young Israelis. Shameful if you're supporting that. If you're really supporting that, you are sick, you are twisted, and you don't have any right to call yourself British. Doesn't matter if people have been here 1,000 years, they're not British values. That's not love and tolerance and law and order. Nah. time for you guys to get off the streets and go and do something. Go and watch the football, do anything. Just don't march around the streets with a Palestinian flag. Enough said.